I'm NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Entin, and every week I'll take you behind the scenes of my life on the road, working on the big stories you care about the most. Here's where I'll share all the great interviews that don't make the final cut. Some might be funny, some might be strange. They're all a part of the puzzle I'm putting together every day to inform you. This is Entin Across America. Hey everybody, this is Brian. I hope you're having a good week. I've been bothered by something lately, and it's made me really sad. And a lot of the stories that we cover obviously make me sad, especially in the true crime space. All the murders and the missing cases, and it's all awful. A lot of it will keep me up at night, especially after I interview victims' families. But it's only human nature when something happens bad to someone that you know, it just impacts you a little more. You hurt a little more because you know the person, and that's how I feel about this next story I'm going to tell you. You guys probably know Tracy Walder. She is our national security contributor here at NewsNation. Incredible woman. She's a former CIA agent. She's a former FBI agent. Not many people I can think of who are both in the CIA and the FBI. Spent much of her life literally chasing around terrorists and spies in other countries. She was in the Middle East for a long time. I mean, she's just had this incredible career. She's so brave. She's such a nice person, too. I think that's what really sets her apart, even just on a personal level, getting to know her. She's a really, really nice human being. And I went out to interview her. I flew out to Dallas, Texas. It's probably been about a month ago. And I went to interview her about, something that she's an expert in. I was doing a story about China buying farmland near military bases and whether it's a national security risk. So I met up with Tracy to do the interview. She lives that way. And we did the interview, and she did an amazing job as always. And at the end, she said to me, I've been really dealing with something that's impacted my family, and it's just been hard. And I said, well, what's going on, Tracy? And she told me this story about what happened to her daughter. Tracy's daughter was in a private school, an all-girls school in Dallas when she was 3 years old, and she was abused by her teacher. Tracy was telling me stories about how the teacher would lock her daughter in the closet because she wouldn't stop crying, how Tracy's daughter had this sort of mysterious broken arm, and how Tracy's daughter just wasn't acting like herself, began to bite her nails until her fingers bled, blinked obsessively. She told me how her daughter became sad and withdrawn. And Tracy just knew something was wrong, like she knew it. And she went to the school. Tracy's actually a teacher at this school. She also taught at the school. So she knew her daughter's teacher. She knew everyone at the school. She knew the administrators. She got a bad feeling that something was going on with this teacher. The name of the teacher, the preschool teacher's name was Jason Baldwin. So she went to the school, complained. She said she was kind of ignored, and nothing was really done about it. The red flags were ignored, Tracy says. And this is where the story gets even more disturbing. And I'm just sitting there. I was interviewing Tracy about this whole different subject. She's telling me this story, and I'm like, oh my God, Tracy, this is terrible. I couldn't believe it, especially coming from such a tough woman like Tracy to know that she was dealing with this. Well, anyway, she goes on to tell me that the teacher, Jason Baldwin, was later arrested on child pornography charges as part of a national investigation by the FBI. He'd been teaching at this prestigious private school for 6 years, preschoolers as young as 6 months old, and he was arrested for child porn. The same teacher that Tracy had been complaining about because her daughter, had been locked in the closet and all these other awful things. So when he was arrested, this Jason Baldwin guy, he admitted to purchasing child porn using a PayPal account that was listed and connected to the school's mailing address. I mean, it's just awful. He said he'd been addicted to child porn for 8 years, and he ended up getting sentenced to 20 years in prison. That was last year. But Tracy became very, very upset because she was frustrated that she went to the school with these red flags about what was happening with her daughter, which was unrelated to the child porn, but still, and that the school really did nothing about it, Tracy said. And we started to look into it and realize that that's like the scary truth with a lot of schools around the country, whether they're private or public. Teachers accused of abuse are being allowed to quietly move to other school districts and actually continue teaching kids. It even has a name. If you Google it, you can see this is like a problem all across the country. If you go past the trash, you'll see that it's a real name for what's going on. It happens more than you might think. These so-called trash teachers are not caught and punished in one district until it's too late, and then they can actually move to another school district or to another school, and their disciplinary records don't follow them, so they're able to get a new job and no one even knows about their history. And again, this is something Tracy has become super passionate about because of what happened with her daughter. Last year alone, more than 300 U.S. teachers, kindergarten all the way through high school, were arrested on child sex crimes spanning every state in the country. And again, when I talk about the pass the trash, that's discipline issues overall. We're not just talking about child sex crimes, but that's certainly part of it. When you break it down by child sex crimes, the stats from last year included 5 principals, 3 assistant principals, 290 teachers, 26 substitute teachers, 25 teachers' aides. You get the idea. I mean, it's a real problem. And Tracy, let me just back up. So she's telling me this whole story with her daughter and all this research she's done about the pass the trash issue with teachers. And she's like, I kind of think we should do a story about it. And I'm like, well, Tracy, this is your daughter. Like, I want to be sensitive. I don't want you to do anything you would regret putting out this information about what you guys went through as a family. And she's like, no, I want to do it because I think it'll help other people. Everybody thinks of me as this strong, which she is, FBI, CIA agent. And she's like, if this can happen to me, this can really happen to anyone. And I want to put this warning out there. So I'm like, yes, let's do it. You're right. We should do the story together. So we finally put it together. I interviewed Tracy. I don't think it was easy for her to talk about, but she really, really wanted to get out there and do it. And I want you to listen to what Tracy said. Tracy Walder joins me live now. It's her first time talking about this on TV, this awful ordeal. It's really brave of you to come on and talk about this, Tracy. I know this isn't necessarily your comfort zone. Normally, we're talking to you about national security issues, but I couldn't believe when you told me the story about what happened to your daughter. I think most people think of you as former FBI agent, former CIA agent. They would think, gosh, nothing like this would ever happen to Tracy. But I think this just shows that it can really happen to anyone.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brian, and for really creating an environment where I feel comfortable, quite frankly, talking about this. I appreciate you very much for this opportunity. I think, title of CIA and FBI, one thing I do want to add to that is I left the FBI actually to pursue a dream of becoming a teacher. And I was a teacher at that very same school in which my daughter was abused. I had taught there for about a decade. And so that really complicated all of this a lot further. That was something I don't think I ever thought would happen really in my wildest dreams. But after it happened, I started really researching because I'm not here to diminish the job that teachers are doing. I am one of them. But this is a serious issue that we need to take seriously. And since 2010, really the number of complaints about sexual violence in K through 12 schools has tripled. And that is very bothersome. And we really have to get to the bottom of why.
Yeah, you mentioned you taught at the school. You warned the school about what you were noticing. You even got child services involved. Again, you were teaching at the school. And then I just keep thinking back to your history as a CIA agent and a former FBI agent. I mean, did they really just not take you seriously?
That's a good question. I can't answer that. I don't know. Because they didn't really do anything about my concerns. I think that they didn't take me seriously. And sometimes I wonder if maybe my 3-year-old had a little bit of CIA and FBI in her and realized this teacher, was highly problematic. But I think they either didn't take me seriously or quite frankly, it was really shocking to be believed.
Yeah, I want to read the statement from the school because they released a statement. It says, since learning of the prosecution of Jason Baldwin, the school has undertaken a comprehensive audit conducted by external experts of all relevant policies and practices, from hiring protocols to the security of its facilities. The school will continue to take every step at its disposal to protect the safety and well-being of its students. But again, as we mentioned, Tracy, this isn't just about this one particular school. It's happening around the country. How do we fix this? I mean, how is it possible that these teachers can have these serious disciplinary records and just move to another district or move to another state and they don't even know?
So that's a great question. Really, this came out of something called the Every Student Succeeds Act, which was passed under the Obama administration in 2015. And there was a little section on it, section 8546. And really, what that does is a provision prohibiting schools from aiding and abetting sexual abuse. So it's saying to schools, hey, if you are allowing a teacher to resign because of these accusations, that will be against the law. But the problem is only 4 states have really enacted laws prohibiting schools from doing this. And I'm not sure if it's because they don't want to or because this is such an obscure provision. But bringing
Mm.
attention to it, like you're doing right now, is actually really, really helpful.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking it almost sounds like what went on with the Catholic Church and the sex scandal, like the way they would just move people around to different places and no one really knew in the new place, what had happened with the priest in the previous church, kind of like the teachers in this situation. Tracy, when you found out that this teacher had been arrested for child porn and you already knew what your daughter had gone through and the warnings that you were trying to give the school, I mean, I can't even imagine, like, what was that moment like?
I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that I lost it, and I have told you that before. Look, I've served in war zones, I've interrogated terrorists, but you do feel a sense of that you've failed your child. And for me, it was twofold because I had this happening to my own child, but this was also a school that I taught at and I loved, and I had a really great track record at. So it was this kind of double-edged issue that I was dealing with, but it's really built a level of distrust, quite frankly, between me and really a lot of people in my daughter's life. And that's something that I'm not sure will ever go away anytime soon.
What do we say to parents? How can we help parents? Because there are parents watching again thinking, oh my gosh, Tracy Walder, like this happened to her and her daughter. Like, what can a parent do? Is there anything you learned coming out of this that might help someone?
I think the first thing to do is go immediately to CPS. I think even if you suspect something, it's always best to go to CPS. I've learned the hard way it's probably not best to approach the school first because they have their own ideas and their own agenda of how they want that to play out. But this is your child, this is your life, and this is your family. And so it's probably best, in my opinion, to start with CPS. I think the other thing too is if you notice behavior changes in your child, document everything, journal that so that you're keeping record of that and seeing if it matches up with any of the accusations that are going on about that teacher. So I think those are two things to really keep in mind. But I also think too, and this sounds sort of flippant, but don't second guess yourself. I know I did, and I don't want any other parent to do that.
Well, you're so brave, Tracy, like I was so disturbed when you first told me this story. Like I wasn't expecting that happened to your family, and now for you to sort of turn what you went through around into trying to help other people. It's not surprising knowing you because that's just sort of the way you live your life. But we really appreciate it, and I really hope that we can continue to follow this issue, and that there'll hopefully be changes in the law, because it just doesn't seem to make sense that these teachers can just bounce around and no one really knows what their history is. So thank you so much, Tracy, for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
So as you can tell, Tracy's obviously a really, really strong woman. She has an incredible family, an amazing husband. Her daughter is doing better now. They've all been in counseling. And just knowing Tracy, they'll come out on the other side of this, stronger than ever. But again, it's so disturbing when you think about what happened to her daughter. It probably happens all the time. Situations like this, it does, based on the stats I told you about. And this pass the trash problem. There are some lawmakers trying to change things. There are some states that have laws where disciplinary records of teachers have to be disclosed, but not all states. And that's something that Tracy is hoping to change. So I told Tracy, I promised her that we would stay on it. Obviously, she's now put her story out there, but we're going to stay on it too. Hopefully talk to some lawmakers, see if we can actually influence some change. But again, if it can happen to Tracy, it can happen to anyone. And I'm glad we were able to get the story out there. To see what I'm up to next, make sure to tune into NewsNation. If you don't know how to watch us, I know we're still kind of new. You don't know where we are on the dial. you can go to www.joinnn.com. You just put in your zip code and the channel finder, and we'll show you where to find us. And also don't forget, we are on all the streamers, Hulu, Roku, YouTube TV. And if you have a story you think that I need to know about, just find me on Twitter. You can shoot me a DM, and I'll make sure to look into it. I'll catch you next time on Entin Across America.